Ever since the Google Pixel 7 Pro was released back in October of last year, it seemed like Google has finally found the right formula for its Pro Pixel device. So much that my first impressions followed up to the device actually being my daily phone ever since then. But it's now 8 months with the Pixel 7 Pro being my main phone. So how has it turned out? Have things changed? And is it still worth getting right now in 2023? Well, I'm actually ready to dig in and share all the ups, all the downs, or should I say its best and least impressive aspects after all this time with the Pixel 7 Pro. So let's get straight to it. Alright, let's start by taking a look at some of the best aspects, and of course I have to start with the design. Now when it comes to the design, this is where the Pixel 7 Pro for me personally truly shines. And after 8 months, the device remains as stunning as ever, with no signs of wear and tear, even though I'm a big believer and advocate of always using a case on my devices, because at the end of the day, this device is made up of glass material, making the back of the device especially slippery and the camera visor prone to scratches and scuffs. So I tend to change the case on my Pixel 7 Pro from time to time, and right now I'm rocking this sleek looking case from a company called Today. They actually sent out a few of their cases for me to try out for the Pixel 7 Pro, and it's actually doing a pretty good job at edge protection while not making the device feel too bulky. So definitely check them out. This is not sponsored, but I'll leave links to them down in the description below. But I like to give credit where credit's due, and the design team over at Google really did a nice, really pretty good job with the Pixel 7 Pro. The seamless integration of the camera module and the subtle branding gives the phone this minimalistic and timeless look that I absolutely adore, and one that can potentially last for a while. The phone feels quite balanced in my hands. It's not too heavy and certainly not feeling flimsy either. And one minor change that actually makes a big difference for me is the slight shift of the power and volume buttons downward by just a little. It feels just right, and hand gymnastics are no longer a thing for me, especially when using this phone one-handed. Plus, the slightly softer curves on the Pixel 7 Pro makes this screen easier to use. Now, I'm actually pretty indifferent to curved screens, and I think Google made the right decision here in flattening things out a bit, as I find based on my usage, it means a much better usability. But since we're on the topic of the screen, let's turn our attention over to the display, which was another impressive aspect of the Pixel 7 Pro. And after 8 months, I can confidently say that this display is truly exceptional. Now, that isn't really to say it's the best display on Android on the market, but it's pretty well calibrated and has that improved 1500 nits of peak brightness. So for me, viewing anything in bright outdoors setting was no real issue at all. It's a 1440p 6.7 inch OLED panel, and in my honest opinion, I don't feel the display on this phone is lacking in any area when compared to much of the competition out right now, which is pretty great. I mean, it's super bright, vivid, it's sharp, viewing angles are also great, and most importantly, it's incredibly fluid with it being a 120 Hz panel, which I find is somewhat similar to Apple's ProMotion, actually quite similar to Apple's ProMotion, allowing the screen to adaptively alter its refresh rate depending on what you're doing. Now, I do find that there is still a number of apps that are actually capped at 60 Hz, but for intensive gaming or smooth scrolling, it can ramp up to that 120 Hz and dropping to about 10 Hz for simpler tasks. Now, the Pixel 7 Pro over the past 8 months have actually produced some of my favorite photos from a smartphone camera. It has not always been the best overall, but there's just something about the processing of images where Google's focus on punchy, contrast-heavy shots and color reproduction, especially with skin tones, that I've absolutely enjoyed. And speaking of skin tones, the Pixel 7 Pro is, in my opinion, undoubtedly the best phone on the market for this, hands down. Thanks of course to Google's Real Tone feature, which helps the device to better represent a diverse range of skin tones and colors. Night shots are pretty good also. It isn't out in front in all instances of low light performance, if you should compare it, of course, to the likes of iPhone and the Samsung Galaxies, but it's still very good. It's definitely a lot quicker at shooting good photos at night, even though I oftentimes do prefer the results that are coming from my iPhone. The Pixel, I believe, is just a little bit more reliable if you don't have time to set up your shots. Now, it's not just the photos that makes the Pixel camera a solid one, but the other tricks inside the camera that are just simply not available to the same quality elsewhere. I'm talking about features like photo on blur, magic eraser, amongst others that kind of set the camera package apart from the competition. And I've actually done a dedicated video talking a little bit more in depth about the cameras here on the Pixel 7 Pro and also comparing it to my iPhone 13 Pro. So definitely go check it out to hear more of my thoughts with the cameras. All right, so we've seen rising smartphone prices right across the board, but somehow Google actually kept the entire Pixel 7 series' price right in line with last year models, which is actually pretty impressive and applaudable, if I might say, now in 2023. And will obviously count as another impressive aspect for me of this device. Let's just look at the bigger picture here for a quick second. At $899, Google's flagship, the Pixel 7 Pro, is actually $100 cheaper than Samsung's Galaxy S23 Plus and Apple's iPhone 14 Pro, yet it's often compared to the much more expensive Galaxy S23 Ultra and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And we can actually spend hours and hours nitpicking at every hardware element and features, explaining how it's a step behind this phone or that phone, but the Pixel 7 Pro largely represents an indisputable value here. Now, of course, the argument changes quite a bit if you compare apples to apples, or let's just say, I think the regular Pixel 7 or the Pixel 7a might be a better value than going with the Pixel 7 Pro, but that's actually gonna be for a completely different video. All in all, I guess what I'm saying here is that with all the things that I've mentioned so far and the list of Pixel exclusive features, I do think this is an excellent smartphone at a palatable price, if I might say. And in that regard, I think it exists in a league of its own for now. But I'm actually gonna dock a point for Google's 4-year Android update commitment. Now, come on, Google. I think you should actually at least match Samsung's 5-year commitment, which is actually now gonna take me straight into some of the least impressive aspects of this device that I've found so far. And the first thing that I have to start with, and that's the lack of consistent hardware quality control. Now, this has more to do with Google and less about the device itself, but there have been numerous complaints and reports of persons actually having issues with their Pixel 7 Pro. Issues such as calls that are automatically dropping after a couple of seconds, lags, stutters, or just erratic behavior when scrolling, multiple display problems, Wi-Fi issues, and even the volume rocker I've seen is just falling out. Now, I don't know what it is, and I personally haven't had any issues with my device, luckily for me, I guess. But I've had persons reaching out to me asking if I had any of these issues that they're having. So clearly something is definitely going on, and I do hope Google spend some time and look into sorting out, this before dropping the Pixel 8 series later on this year. But yeah, pretty weird. But if you're watching this and you happen to be having issues along that line with your Pixel 7 device, then definitely drop me a comment down below and share it with the community so we can know what's really going on. Second thing that I've not been so impressed with at all, and that's the fast charging and the battery performance. So in my first impressions of the Pixel 7 Pro, I did actually praise the battery performance that I've been getting. But over the past few months, I actually did find myself, after a day of, I'd say, mid to heavy use, I'm actually left with about 10 to 15% left at the end of the day. So it's definitely a phone that'll likely require nightly charging. I'm not sure if a software update has caused some issues or if there's a rogue app that is draining the battery in the background. Either way, it's barely lasting me a day. But what actually makes this so problematic is the very slow, oh so slow 23 watt max charging speed. Now I find it takes just about an hour and a half or more sometimes to fully charge a depleted Pixel 7 Pro. And if your phone is actually low on power and you're about to head out for a few hours, you can't just plug it in for 10 minutes before leaving and think that that'll be anywhere near enough to get out of trouble somehow. But this isn't gonna be much of an issue if you always happen to have or carry a portable power bank everywhere you go. Needless to say, a slow charging speed is pretty much unforgivable these days, not when other Android smartphones are offering at least 45 or 65 watt of power. Now, I'm not asking Google to reach extreme numbers like 240 watts, but give us something just a little bit more respectable. That's all I'm asking. Now, the third thing is actually going to be the performance, or should I say the potential performance that the Tensor G2 could possibly produce. Now, it's clear that the Pixel series was actually never built around raw performance, but instead, Google's approach here has always been software centric, and this is actually clear as day when you look at the Tensor G2's benchmark results when compared to the likes of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. But benchmark scores aside, I didn't actually notice any hiccups in my day-to-day use on the Pixel 7 Pro. It's been fast and smooth. Games play just as well, at least in my tests, as they do on Qualcomm-powered Snapdragon phones. But I still think a better chip would let it do more things faster, have better energy efficiency, which ultimately would lead to better battery performance. But again, I believe the Tensor G2 isn't necessarily aiming to rival the performance of Apple's Bionic chips or Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen whatever, but instead what it will do is increase the skills of Google's AI features such as translation, stupidly crazy unmatched voice transcription skills, real tone, face on blur, and just many more. But I guess the real question here is, would you honestly take these benefits over having a more raw performance? Let me know down in the comments. That aside, the Pixel definitely excels in its more basic features, kind of what we expect smartphones to get right. Pretty good call quality, stable and fast Wi-Fi connections, great haptics, fingerprint scanner works pretty well. It's IP68 water and dust resistant, so yeah, definitely no worries there where that is concerned. So yeah, I really think Google has struck a fine balance here with the Pixel 7 Pro without actually messing around too much with the Pixel 6 Pro's formula. It's certainly the best that Google has made to date, of course, not included the just released Pixel Fold. We'll actually see how that one turns out. But if the Pixel 8 Pro can continue to somehow build on the solid Pixel 7 Pro's foundations in the long term, then it'll be one of the best phones that you could probably buy. And for that, I'll definitely recommend waiting if you can. But if you can't wait on the Pixel 8 and you're looking to get something now, then yeah, I'd definitely go for it. It's been one of the best Android experiences that I've had so far this year. But yeah, pretty good. Anyways, that has been it. Thanks so much for watching. We're almost at that 1,000 subscriber count, that 1K mark. Thanks to you guys so much for actually hitting that subscribe button. If you haven't done so as yet, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below. Join this awesome community, and thanks to you all for the wonderful and the huge support that you've given me so far here on the channel. And yeah, hopefully the next upload will actually hit that 1K mark. Anyways, thanks again so much for stopping by and watching, and I'll see you guys for sure in my next video.